Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal scout. The journey continues today on January 18th, 2023 at approximately 4:25 p.m. PST. Now, I returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind everybody that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer people are the exact same tools that I personally use in my own day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life that I discuss are the ones I personally live by. Now, before I get into I should go this route. Today, because yesterday was a little, shall we say, a little rough, today I'm leaving it as an open topic. In other words, you've got a question in anything, just ask. I may give you the answer that I'm not giving you an answer, but ask anyway. Now, before I get underway here, we have Dogface coming in with the gold. Saint comes in with the silver, and Shadow, you've come in with the bronze. Now the reality of it is, and there we have Tara. And Tara, you've come in with honorable mention. And I presume you received word. We do have your book in the mail. Like, literally, it's not going down tomorrow. It's already en route. Now it's up to them. But as things stand, and what do we got here? Let's redo that. This is why I say, I was actually on the phone today before I came here, right before I started the feed. At about 1:00 this afternoon, I actually got on the phone to my phone and internet provider, figuring it was going to be complicated. Well, I was on the phone with them for 2.5 hours. Mr. L, glad to see you could join us. I was on the phone with them for 2.5 hours, and all that they managed to do, which kind of made me feel better in a way, is lock my account up so I couldn't do anything. Can't complain that that's not loud enough. They're trying to sort it out. Now, fortunately, we're talking about my phone and my internet access, not the account themselves. So they're dealing with that. At least that would be the theory. Okay. So I figure, I'm looking at yesterday. I realized that yesterday probably created some complications. I know it did for me. Because in case you hadn't noticed, some of what I was discussing yesterday with the MyLabs, honestly, until I got into it, I really didn't recall some of those pieces. They just came up as I went along. Okay. So I've started taking inventory to find out what I've got in the way of the different books at home now. And the thing is, if you go to rkeithandrews.com, you'll find a whole list of different books. Okay. Only 3 of them are through Amazon right now. But the reality of it is, those 3 being Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams, and Believe in Your Business and Follow Your Dreams, and Mr. Dreamcatcher. However, the other 4 books that are listed there are still available. They can be acquired via PayPal. Okay, just follow the links in there. And of course, my email address for PayPal is innervoiceenterprises@yahoo.ca. Yesterday was a little rough. I ended up packing it in about 10:30 last night, but unfortunately ended up awake at 2. Okay, so now I'm in the process of trying to catch things up. Get my brain back in gear, which is, to say the least, a bit of a challenge. Now, what do we got? Oh, who do we got? In all fairness there, Shadow, both of these Now, this is why I'm working with, trying to work with Amazon, but I have had more problems I care to count with. This is the birth of the wolf pack. Okay, as you can see, it's fully done. It is available. The drawback to it is it's $40 plus 25 for shipping. Okay, it's available right off the bat. The sequel to it, and that, again, they can be ordered straight through PayPal. Okay, I still deal with it the same way. Cliff, how you doing? And of course, we have The End of an Epoch, which is a direct sequel to The Birth of the Wolf Pack. Okay, so yes, both of these are available as is, right off the bat. It's just, it's a little bit of a pain in the neck. Shipping is just killing me. Okay. I am still working on getting the Return to Paradise, which is the third book in that particular trilogy. Okay, I'm just going through final edit on it right now. And of course, along with doing that, now I don't need this in here. Just trying to get some of this stuff out. Oh, that's what I was trying to do. Is go here. Because I know this individual. Where are we here? Copy that, pop that in here, and see if that does any good. Yeah. So are they available? The answer is yes. Okay, it's just a question of getting everything organized and getting the web pages to work. Which is just an absolute royal pain. The one thing I did come to find is that the people, the different corporations I've worked with have thus far proven to be exactly the same as each other. Great sales pitch, but the outcome has been, shall we say, less than functional. Okay, but I am starting to work with things as best I can. Chad, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And where are we here? Okay, draw a complete blank on whatever I was thinking. That happens on occasion. So I am looking and making things happen. Of course, right now, like I've already figured out, and this is where turning things around becomes a critical issue. Okay, I think you'll notice. Yeah, if I move out of the way, you can see my filing drawer here is open, which needless to say doesn't need to be. So I take that and get it out of the way. Again, when you're reorganizing things, when you're striving to get your life back in order, or in order in the first place, kind of necessary to decide what is not working for you and act on it. Because I will tell you, Joe, how you doing? Glad you can make it. People say thinking about doing something is as bad as doing it. Well, the reality of it is, if that were the case, then there are so many stories that have been written where the author has thought about the end of the world. So many D&D games, so many role-playing games, so many movies where the world has come to a grinding halt. If it were a case of what you think about is what happens, we would have a disaster already. I can honestly say there, Shadow, after last night, much as I did not have nightmares while I was sleeping, which was a nice change, I've been fighting flashbacks due to yesterday's show that has just been ridiculous. Okay, but it's something that you learn to live with. Now, what is this? Of course, I didn't quite get that done. What do we got here? Yeah, I'm going to end up moving around a little. Like I said, it's a question I've opened because of the fact I don't know exactly what I'm up to. Working on it, mind you. Did I actually get that done? That is, look, not that one. See, I still use a hard copy desktop calendar. Okay. This little issue can go the way of the dodo bird. Like I said, if you're going to change the way your world is going, you've got to decide, okay, what have you got? Yeah, I kind of gathered that. And the answer to your question there, Saint, is yeah, I have. Personally, have I ever felt it? No, but have I heard of people that have gone through that? Yes. One of the times I see that happening is when you're dealing with somebody that is suffering from PTSD. Sometimes they'll feel something because of what they've gone through in the past. Okay. Sometimes I know of one case in particular where the person kept feeling their feet were wet. And they'd look around and find out, oh, there's no water on the ground. Okay. But what they found was a few weeks after they started feeling it, they ended up finding out that their water main in the basement had broke. Now, I usually caution people, if you're feeling this sort of thing there, if you're feeling that kind of water, that kind of drip, be aware you may have a brewing problem that you're not entirely certain of at this point. Yeah. And honestly, Mr. L, that's actually what I do. Okay, what I do is I go, okay, if it's local, like I sell my novels at $40. If they're coming here to get them, it's just 40 flat. I do not charge the 65. The only reason I charge the 65 is because if I'm going to actually replenish the books once they're sold, if I'm spending the cost of three books and a bit, because the financial side of it is this. With the birth of the wolf pack, I pay $20 to get this. Okay. If I am charging and that's just the flat out bill of it, never mind anything else. But if I'm going to ship this anywhere in Canada or the continental US, it's costing me $25 right now, which is a murderous price. Okay, so I am looking to find less expensive ways, and I'm going to do the really weird thing. Okay, apparently it's almost unheard of. What's going to end up happening is as I bring the shipping price down, I will bring the cost down. That's a thing. But the thing there, Star. Okay, first of all, I'm going to go back to the first thing you were talking about. Star has just added that phantom sensations can trigger muscle cramps. Okay. I'm wondering if that's why my left leg keeps seizing. It's a pain, I'll tell you. I was going to say it's a pain in the neck, but it hurts elsewhere. But, oh, by the way, small businesses often will charge the shipping separately, yes. I'm still having absolute chaos trying to get anything with Amazon working right. So this is why I'm using that site and saying, look, if like Tara found out the system wasn't working right, I've actually got a book on its way to Tara that I sent out this morning. One way or another, I will find a way to get it there in spite of what the industry says. That's just quite frankly the way I work. Because from my standpoint, if I'm going to do something, first rule of thumb, if you're going to say you're going to do something, find a way to make it happen. Okay. That's just the reality behind it. But no, it really boils down to, well, yeah, see, the neat thing with that, Mr. L, okay, water is, it is, um, water is representative of the spirit. It's also representative of the subconscious. Okay, so when you're looking at healing, and this is why I say energy is very much like water. You redirect the way energy is flowing, the same as you redirect the way water is. The reality is you cannot destroy energy and you cannot stop water. You know, think about it. You can freeze water and the glacier will still continue moving forward. That's because you haven't stopped it. So all you do with energy, with healing, with water, all you do is go, this is where it's heading. Now, how do I make it move in that direction? How do I guide my life, my energy output to accommodate what I'm aiming for? Okay, now we have a choice. Every one of us has the same choice. We can look to 2022 and go, I've got all these problems and all these complications, and we can dwell on that and dwell on the fear. Carl, how you doing? Glad you could join us. We can dwell on the fear that we're just going to have another year just like 2020 and like 2022 was. Or we can go like I went and did and went, I'm done with this. You know, I'm done with the backlog. So I'm turning around and making things happen in such a way that I can actually get ahead. Okay, and my hope is that by talking to you guys about it, that some of you can avoid some of the hiccups that I've gone through. Or as I've seen in this chat room, and it's absolutely fantastic, some of the input that comes through that I see in the cross chatter, okay, tells me that you guys are also helping each other. And realistically, that is what this is all about. Okay. Now, I learned something the other day. One of the things I did learn from all the fiasco I've been going through is how to start spreading word of what I'm up to. Okay, so I'm starting, come to think of it, where is my list? Just writing down another little detail I've got to do, which is an ad for you for my YouTube channel, for this channel here, to start letting people know where we are. Okay. Well, so much for nice, but no, YJ, that's fantastic. You know, so I mean, it's things like this that we go back to the old idea. Okay. You know, we go back to the old idea of helping each other. We can bypass this fear that everybody that you're around is going to hurt you. Okay. Andre, well, one of these days I'm going to have to figure that one out. But, Andresius, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You know, it's funny when you talk about feeling younger there, YJ. I was looking at a post today on Facebook, and the guy says, the problem that a lot of us senior citizens run into is we look old and nobody thinks that we could possibly feel young. And I'm telling you, you drop 50 pounds and you're going to feel a heck of a sight more energetic. I can tell you this from firsthand experience. You know, but the reality is the more of the positive things that we can share. Okay. I was worried that when I first started reading that, YJ, when you said you helped the little old lady across the street, my first question was, did she want to go? That's the first question that popped into my head because of something that I saw years ago on a post. Well, it was in a comic. It wasn't on a post, but you get the idea. we can look to the past and we can continue listening to people telling us that the world is coming to an end, that, all of a sudden we're going to have famine and food shortages and power shortages. Okay. And what we are suffering from right now is a motivation source, is a shortage of motivation. Way too many people are going, I'm going to sit back until everything calms down. Well, good luck with that. I've been watching people with that kind of a philosophy for over 2,000 years, and that's just in the last couple. Never mind the length of time beforehand. Okay. By the way, I did actually start looking into the idea of getting coffee mugs and what have you. I don't know where I'm going to find them at this point, but I do know I'm going to. But I figure if I can find them in bulk and get them at a decent price in bulk, then I can get them done for me. And of course, here's the neat little thing. I'm looking to get them done, but I'm looking to get decent quality. Because I do not like, when you take a look at shirts, and like, for instance, this one had an iron-on tap, an iron-on pitcher. Now, clearly, it did not peel off like many that I've ended up buying over the years. But, okay, what I'm going to be looking for where it comes to t-shirts is a t-shirt is somebody that can embroider the sayings, not just iron them on. Now, does that mean they'll be a little more expensive? You bet. Okay. But again, when you're looking at altering the way your life is going on, okay, you got to put things right. You got to put things in the right order. Okay. And the most effective order I've ever seen was take a look at the path you're on. Take a look at what you're aiming to do. When you take a look at that and you start eliminating the things that are slowing you down, you'll find you get a lot more accomplished. Now, granted, I will tell you, getting on, going to bed at 10:30 at night, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning is going to create some hiccups. In my case, I'm just trying to think if I went back to sleep. Never made it that far, which means right now I have been on the go for 15 hours already today. World, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The reality of it is that people out there have a lot of questions. Now, on the whole, I got some remarkable responses from people outside of the line, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciated people checking in. Because, yesterday's can we try English? What do you think? Or should we just stick to Stumbleese? Yesterday did create some complications for me. Fortunately, it didn't disrupt my sleep. But I will tell you, the day has not been exactly a joyride. That's just the reality of it. Yeah, it would have been nice to sleep until 6 a.m. Thank you so much for that, world. By the way, we are sitting currently at 352 subscribers, which from my standpoint is great. Okay, like I said, one of the primary reason that I pay attention to the subscribers at all, as far as the number goes. As far as the individuals go, I love the question I keep getting asked by people. Is it okay if I just listen in? Okay, rest assured, just listening in is absolutely perfect. There is no problem there at all. Because this message, everybody doesn't have time to sit down and be in the chat room. Okay, heck, there are days when I question whether I've got time to be in the chat room. But it's amazing sometimes, it'll be like, I've got my alarm set I'll get the stream set up early in the morning and leave it sit there. And then I'll get the alarm set if I have to go to sleep to make sure I've got at least 15 minutes to wake up. Okay. And again, like I said, guys, and this is something I got to get used to. Well, I need this. Come back up here. Don't have quite enough room on my desk, so I'm still working on that. But who do we got in here? Thought I saw somebody else come in. Carl, YJ. You know, I just about asked you there, Andreas. I just about asked you how you pronounce that, and I'm like, yeah, I can ask that, but since I'm not dealing with vocal on your end, this might be a bit of a hiccup. Okay, but you will, well, you might not be happy to know. I had a chunk of book 7 that I was writing on today that I ended up getting another number of pages. Matter of fact, where is that particular file? And like I said, when you're aiming at changing things, you know, when you're aiming to get things on track, okay, approaching it in small pieces is imperative. Okay. Now, given that I'm looking at, yeah, that's not much. Let's see. I do have to look at that. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Andreas. You know, I really do appreciate that. Okay. Now I gotta ask you, and I'm sure the world that Shadow will love this little question. What character are you actually running right now? I personally am running I'm running a little gnome, right? Just a little guy. And when I mean a little guy, I mean he's like 2 feet tall. By the name of We Upon Gone. Just a little guy. But what primary character are you running right now? You know, because I find that the characters that really hold on to you, that you really connect with, are ones that end up becoming absolutely beautiful renditions to your repertoire. Okay, truth be told, the lead character in the lead protagonist in this book, okay, J.G. Wolfrond, was built for an aftermath campaign back in the 80s. Okay, and every one of the primary characters in that series were built. Oh, you know, in all fairness, I'm just looking at this. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing an orc. If I could get my left hand working properly, I was playing with Elder Scrolls for a while. Right, but unfortunately, after my stroke, I lost the functional use of coordination of my left hand, making controllers absolutely annoying. I have no idea, Joe. You know, Joe just asked a question here. Can I clear the privacy browser on my iPad? In all fairness, I have no idea how you would even go about doing that. Technology is one of those fields that, honestly, talking to me about it, well, I can go around in circles with modern tech. Greetings, love. Glad you made it. You know, I have no idea what the privacy browser actually means, or what it does, other than the obvious issue. You know, But no, from my standpoint, it boils down to this. I have no idea what you're set like. Well, I look at it this way, lovey love. I'll tell people right off the bat. You know, I actually I had a biker tell me one day I didn't belong where I was. I looked at him, I said, that's okay. I don't belong anywhere else either. I used to be kind. I know you were in that this was not meant as an insult by any stretch, because, well, it's a little backwards way of calling it an insult. Especially if you think you're here. But a buddy of mine put it one day really neatly. He goes, dead fish do not swim upstream. If you're going to make it a mark in this world, a positive mark, you gotta step outside of this normal box. Like people keep telling me, you gotta think outside the box. I'm like, where, pray tell, is the box you gotta think outside of? Okay, I've never been able to find the box. So I guess I'm still outside of it, or I'm stuck so far in the middle of it, I just don't know where to go. And I have met people like that. You look at them going, number one, you couldn't organize a drunk up in a brewery, and number two, you couldn't find your way off a wet blanket. Oh, I understand that for an absolute certainty, though, there, lovey love. I do not take, I didn't take, and I didn't even lean in that direction. Because from my standpoint, what I have found, I used to hang around with a way back when BBSs were the thing. I used to be on a BBS that was called The Fringe. Okay. And the reality is that people that don't think in a different fashion, I find a lot of the time tend to get a little on the boring side. Now, you take people like, before the internet came into existence, okay, there was another computer set up where people would set up a bulletin board system on their own computer. And then what would happen is you would have to phone that person's specific computer. And then you could interact just like a localized internet. Okay. It was a predecessor for years before the internet took off and connected all the BBSs together. So I mean, this is back when, and some of you that are close to my age will recognize this. The first modem I had, and I forget what the actual term means, but it was what we used to go over the telephone lines to get to another computer. The first modem I ran with, that I personally owned, was only 1,200 baud. A buddy of mine had a modem that you literally had to pick up the phone, dial the other computer's number, and set the receiver down on the cradle of the computer. Just very very old tech in a lot of ways. Okay, I will tell you. I remember running a game one day. It was an Aftermath game. Okay, Aftermath is post-apocalyptic. And I was running the game, and the guys were looking around, and I said, you found a very old computer. Okay, well, a bunch of them were looking at it, and they're looking, they looked at it, they didn't really think. And the one guy turns around and he says, I pry the computer open. Because he thought he thought it was a case. Right. So he goes, I pried the computer open. I says, no problem. Made the rolls. He pried the computer open. I says, great. You now have little metal bars and round wooden balls all over the floor. Right. Now, the reality of it was I did tell him it was an old computer. And for those of you that recognize it, an abacus from ancient China, and even from today's world, is one of the original calculators that were available. You know, you see the neat thing about the computers now. This has more computing power in it than the original Cray. The original Cray, the original Cray computer was literally several blocks in size. I tried playing old. I was playing it there, Chad, but I deleted my account because I couldn't get because number one, I can't play with the keyboard. And of course, after the stroke, my left hand doesn't have the response time that I need to play on the controller. So this time, at this point, I don't play any of the online games. You know, I find them way too frustrating because I can't get my hands to do what I need them to. Now, I got to ask you there, Andres, what, pray tell, is OSRS? Absolutely. This is a nice thing, Joe. A graveyard is a great place to go to pay respects to anybody, even if it's not the graveyard that you personally and that the person you're striving to pay respects to, even if they are not there. Okay, going into a gravesite and paying your respects to somebody you know has passed, it's like walking onto the internet and posting broadband. I'm paying my respects to so and so. Word gets around between the grave sites. You know, it's wonderful. I don't recall here, Joe. Do you actually see spirits walking around, or you just feel them and you like the energy pattern? Ah, okay. Thank you so much, there, Chad. Yeah, from my standpoint, it like these new computer games. I'm still very much old school. And no, I didn't bring any of them with me. But I still use actual physical dice on the tabletop. What have we got? Um, Gee, I don't know. You know, YJ's just going. They say it takes a week in the wilderness with no Wi-Fi to fully unplug and reset. Beat internet addiction. You know, if the net ever goes down, what will happen? The world will instantly awaken. Well, here's the other thing that will happen. When the internet goes down, and we know it's going to because there's more and more draw on it, and nobody's dealing with the real problem. Warhammer figures, no, but D&D figures, yes. The closest thing to a Warhammer figure that I've got is this one that where's my stool? Because I'm not tall enough. This is one that came out of Skyrim because I used to play it a lot. I actually don't have any Warhammer figures. You know, this one comes out of Skyrim, and if you play Skyrim, I'm sure you'll recognize him. You know, he came that way. But I kind of figured that was a good idea. I'm just trying to think if it would take me a few minutes to find what I'm looking for as far as the mechanical figures go. But I do have these. I've got the D&D figures. Most of them have been moved out front now. You know, clearly this is not one of the Warhammer ones. But, you know, so I'm still working with these guys. This one's actually completed as far as I'm going to bother. You should stay there. But no, you know, when you get something that you can actually distract your mind with, okay, in order to unplug from reality, I remember when we were playing Aftermath, you could always tell if the game was going to be hectic. If people had, I remember Super Mario. Actually, it was funny because the one I really took to was actually Ms. Pac-Man. Just scanning through here. See, this is the thing. So many of us. I go out in the woods. So many people, they get caught up in the physical, in the technological world, and people are have moved into a lot of the internet gaming. Somebody asked me the other day if I run an online game, and I may eventually. It just depends on whether I get enough interest to warrant it. It's just right now I'm turning things around. So I've got a number of projects that I'm dealing with. I'm curious, in all fairness, because the one to really ask, and I don't know if he's in right now, if Shadow is still in the room. He's the one that likely has the Warhammer figures. Okay, because he's got a really neat collection. I've seen part of it on his shows. Yeah, I honestly remember that game, but that the game Joust. I do remember it. I used to really enjoy Ogre and Car Wars, and it's a toss-up which one I actually enjoyed more. But we also ended up playing Sev. But I mean, I've been playing for so long; it's hard to decide which one was actually my best. Transylvania, I didn't play, but I did play Masquerade. Okay, I did it for a while there. I played Masquerade, and I ended up playing a Vampire Bruja. What do we got here? Yeah, I looked at Blood Bowl, but the people that I was playing with when Blood Bowl came out, we were so far into Aftermath and Shadowrun that we never went that way. Yeah, basically, if you think of a Bruja as a wild child, didn't follow the rules too terribly well, tended to break a lot of different rules that they were told they were supposed to follow. Kind of familiar, really. I get told I'm not supposed to do a lot of things. And, I swear half the time that my characters are like that. Somebody will say, you can't do that. My character goes straight for what they're told they're not allowed to do. Not necessarily the wisest idea. Yeah, you should have seen what I did. I was playing against my brother. And we were having, with Car Wars, we were having a highway race. And just so happened, because of the way things were going, I'd gotten out in front of it. And, we turned around. We're racing down the highway and we're constantly upping our speed. And then what we had done with the track was we just literally rolled randomly. It's a straightforward track. It's an easy drift or a hard drift. And we would, you'd have to make adjustments. But he's laying into my back armor. And I'm laying into his front armor with my rear facing weapons. But he thought he had me absolutely. He thought he had me absolutely dead to rights. So we got up to something around 85 miles an hour, and he's accelerating, and I locked the brakes. Well, Of course, as you well know if you ever played Car Wars, when I locked the brakes, first of all, the guns went off and took out part of my back armor. Then you had meanwhile, my guns were going off, taking out his front armor. Then we had the impact, which folded past my back armor. But it wasn't until after the back armor went away that the bumper triggers went off. And my brother thought that he had me dead to rights because he'd folded my back end badly and he still had a lot of armor on him. And I says, not quite so quick. Right? It says, yes, you got through my back armor. That means you hit the bumper triggers that are linked to 2 surplus tank guns. Okay, both tank guns went off, took out the rest of his front end, took out his engine, took out his gunner, or took out his driver, his gunner's weapons, took out all the armor straight to the back end. I'll tell you, my brother was not happy. It was from a tactical standpoint, it looked like it worked like a charm. Hey Carl, didn't see you come in. Glad you could join us. When I take a look at it, like I remember with Jeremiah, right, one of the things that actually happened in the game, we ended up with a captive we ended up with 2 captives inside our vehicle. And of course, the one chap is interrogating them. And he says, look, you don't tell me what I want to know. I'm going to shoot you. The guy goes, well, how's that going to help? You shoot me, I'm still not going to tell you how to go. What you're looking for. So my partner, and again, these are characters that are actually in the Yldrbacian Chronicles in these first 3 books. The guy that was doing the interrogating was Blade. And he made this comment, and of course, Blade goes, well, fine. I'll shoot the guy beside you. And I piped out, Jeremiah pipes up and goes, wait a minute there, Blade, hang on. Make you a deal, chap. You tell us exactly what we want to know. And we'll let you go. We won't shoot you. Of course, the problem there was Blade already shot his partner. Right? So I just looked at him at the guy that was left, and I said, okay, look, you tell me what I want to know, and I will guarantee I'll let you out of this building alive. Right? Nobody will shoot you, and Blade, that goes for you as well. So the guy agrees, and he spills all the information we were looking for. Now, the poor game master is watching this take place. And I looked at the guy, and I says, no problem. I'm going to let you out alive. Absolutely. So I turned to Blade and I says, pop the belly hatch. Right. Now, in the vehicle we were in, of course, obviously it had a belly hatch. If you know anything about military vehicles, okay, most of them have a belly hatch. So I'm driving a track. I was driving a Samaritan armored ambulance. So I looked at Blade and I said, pop the belly hatch and let him out. Right? Without telling the game master anything about it. Blade drops him out through the belly hatch onto the floor below, onto the ground below. I said, as soon as Blade let go of him, I said, I pull a hard left. Right. And the game master looks at me and goes, you killed him. I said, well, of course I killed him. I told him I was going to let him go I was going to let him go alive. Right. And the game master goes, yeah. I said, well, he was alive when he hit the ground. Now, I mean, this was just Jeremiah's way of doing what he had to. He'd talk his way out of anything, but pity help you if you ended up with a problem. I mean, it's like a dwarf I was running in D&D, right? A dwarf by the name of Shadowhammer. He ended up, quite by accident, owning a fleet of ships. But the way he got them was he would take the pirate ship and then he'd go, okay, you got one of two choices. This one ship, we caught the thing, about a mile offshore. And we told the whole crew, the ones that survived, we says, look, you can either work for me or you can swim for shore, right? And of course, about half of them said we're swimming for shore. So I looked at the guys and I said, okay, guys, you're not slaves, you're part of our crew, but we need rowers. So you're on the bottom rung, you're going to be rowing. These guys are heading for shore. Take care there, Shadow. Hope you'll get back in time. If not, enjoy your meal. Okay, and absolutely say hi to your son for us, if you'd be so kind. So I told these guys, I told the pirates, I said, you can swim for shore. As soon as they hit the water, I looked at the crew that stayed behind and said, okay, guys, rail them in. We pulled them back onto shore, onto the boat. And they said, hey, you said you'd let us swim for shore. I said, I did. I didn't tell you it was a good idea or that I would let you get to shore. So now you're doing the rowing. But it's very much a question, and I found out a long time ago, when I'm aiming at doing something, I use D&D, I use gaming as a way, yeah, it is. I use gaming as a way of figuring out how to manifest my world. Okay, now understand, I'm building an empire here. And I don't mean in gaming, I mean in real life. I'm going to build, I'm in the middle of building a publishing company that will publish people's work without giving you this bad idea of, oh, it's not good enough to publish. There are genres I won't touch. Okay, but I'm not worried about whether it's good enough to publish, right? I'm worried about whether or not you have something you desire to put on the mark. But the reality is, I will figure out what it's going to cost me to print, and that will be by a book on a book by book basis. I'll figure out what it'll cost me, give you a price over that, okay, and then it'll be worked out on a percentage base of whatever sales are made that I make, not that you make. And this is where the lawyer comes in, to make sure that the paperwork gets done right. Hey, Nikki, how you doing? Glad you could join us. So I'm going to be building a publishing company. Well, I've already got the company. Okay, but now I'm starting to look into actually figuring out how to make it all work. But here's the reality. I will not make the mistake of telling you, I will market your book and make sure it gets to market. I will tell you, I'll put it on my website. Okay, and I will market my website, but that's where the marketing ends. Other than that, it's up to you guys. Okay. Now, needless to say, if somebody wants their work edited, I do have an editor that is just phenomenal. Okay. And we will make that happen. But I'm tired of this idea of people taking a company and going, gee, I'm going to build this. And then they sit back and do their best to rake everybody over the coals. Okay. So yes, there is a lot that's going on, but while I'm building this in real life, my current character has just bought a property where he is building an empire. He's building a massive business inside a city that is already run by people. I asked my buddy, the game master that is running this particular game. I asked him point blank, I said, why is it every time I get a new character started, he turns around and starts building an empire? My buddy never even blinked. He looks at me and he goes, drive. And this is the thing. You take a look at what you're dealing with, okay, what you personally are working with, and see what you can do, because the second you find a way to do something you enjoy and still make money at it, and still make a living at it, as long as the enjoyment thing is the driving factor, not the finance, you'll find you never feel like you're working. course, that does have the drawback of you don't take time out for you. Okay. So the way I look at it is this. I'm doing everything I can to really open doors and point out to people, if you've got a dream, if you've got a goal that you would like to, that you think you might be able to make work. Oh, I appreciate that, Carl. I've got rice that's already done, and the hamburger I've got fine, because tomorrow I'm going to be doing up a hamburger fried rice. Okay, I would have done it today, but I got lost well, I might do it tonight yet. But what I do there is I just make up the entire stir fry and then break it down into cottage cheese containers, into the 1 pound containers, and 1 pound or 500 mils, depending on who you talk to. Okay. And I put them in that as single meals. So all I have to do is pull them out of the freezer and pop them in. Pop them in the mic, and away we go. But yeah, my next one is going to be dealing with hamburger fried rice. Uh-oh. Yeah, I make my own. That's why I've got 2 slow cookers. And thank you so much for that idea. I do chili again. I do anything in a slow cooker, because for me it was real easy. It's so much easier for me to cook in a slow cooker, than it is to try and cook, multiple dishes at once. But yeah, that's not a bad idea, because I get 2-3 weeks of food in the freezer that I don't have to cook for a long time. And again, this is very much like this, and I call this a mess. What you see behind me is nothing compared to what it used to be. Yeah, isn't it though? It's these instant. I was, in all fairness, I used to stock up on those 1 meal cans, right? But the reality is, I can take rice and I can take a couple of cups of rice, hamburgers, some frozen vegetables, and right there, all in one pot, and all of a sudden, you're dealing with a meal. With a lot less than what it costs you to buy a can. Because I'll tell you, you think about it right now. You go to buy fried rice, right? And you're paying a small fortune. It really isn't. If I can put it together and make it edible, you certainly can. Yeah, I understand the copper pots are probably a better dish. I know my friend's mother swears by cast iron ones. But am I starting to reach out a little further into the cooking side of it? Yeah. Like I said, I used to last year. I was going to the restaurant 4 or 5 days a week. Right. Now I'm going once, maybe twice. Okay. But it is saving me a staggering amount of money. What do we got here? Yeah, I'm still working on the everything homemade. I do have a freezer, so that works out well. From my standpoint, years ago, I used to do my own canning where it came to canning jam as well. Canning jam, canning fruit. Honestly, after I left my ex, it was way too much work for me to try and gamble on my own. So it kind of went the way of the Yldrbac for the moment. But the one thing that I will tell you, if you can find something that you enjoy doing, okay, you'll find that what looks like work to other people may be just a simple way of relaxation for you. And that's what I'm looking at this point. What I am curious about, with any one of you, I mentioned at the end of the last year and at the beginning of this year, whether or not you guys I suggested that you put a list together of different projects to get working on. Speaking of the different projects, I'd made a mistake with my artist down in Texas that's working on the races of the worlds. I sent him the request for a few different pictures of the different races. And I made the mistake to him a few that he'd already done. So he's got the complete batch, and I'm just waiting to see what happens. And then, of course, John, my artist over in England that's working on the Yldrbac Chronicles, he's working on, right now, The Rise of Yldrbac, which is actually 2 years down the road at this point. I've got the artist working to get things wrapped up for me. YJ, I am going in. I take it that's any idea what time that comes up? See, I've got a bunch of money set aside. I've actually got a bunch of money of Canadian Tire money itself that I can put to use, which is kind of handy. Actually, I shocked the daylights out of myself today. Just on a whim, I was asked to apply for if I wanted to apply for another credit card. Now, bear in mind, I'm unemployed. Okay, except what I'm generating through my books and through the readings, and fortunately, through the consulting. And fortunately, that's starting to climb. Okay, I'm still working on what I've got to start pulling in order to make that happen. But I went and applied for another credit card, and shock of shocks in my eyes, they actually gave it to me. So I'll get it in a little while. Yeah, I mean, and I appreciate that, Carl. That was a real godsend from my standpoint when I finally pieced it together. The whole idea of those 4 words, okay, is what prompted me. And this year I'm going to go down to the park again with my magnifying lens and add a little more to this. But I do that down at the park just to darken it up a little, without actually taking away from it. Needless to say, I don't pin this one to the fridge. But anything that you can do to remind yourself that things actually can get better for you if you put the effort into it. See, the reality is, Carl, I haven't looked into gematria yet. To be frank, I really haven't. I've looked into Pythagorean numerology and what I call universal numerology, which is base 12. But gematria, I really haven't done any research on. I have no doubt that it works like a charm for some people. It's like most things, though. Okay, it depends entirely on whether the person can figure out how to work with it. Now, I know people that they guide their entire life by astrology. And I'm telling you, every time I see somebody that guides their entire life, their entire decision making by one venue, they usually run into a problem. It doesn't matter what the venue is. Okay, because what I found is it's a real combination of all of these different things. As you get to understand them, you can combine all of these sources of income, all these sources of information, much like combining your 5 physical senses. I do agree with you, Joe. Stressing about them does not do you any good. And I'm living proof that it's actually fatal. Which I know that sounds completely screwy. I'm absolutely living proof. I drove myself, because of stress dealing with computers, I drove myself into a heart attack just a couple of weeks back now. Or last week, something like that. I don't know, the days run together for me. Absolutely. But I don't use standard numerology because standard numerology has a logical flaw to it. As does Pythagorean numerology, which is your numbers 1 to 9, has some critical flaws to it. What you're saying there, like Carl's just going, yes, be happy. He's just confirming what Joe was saying. There's a song out that says, don't worry, be happy. Well, I do it the other way. I go, worry and be happy. Don't ask me why. It still works out that way for me. Okay, but I will tell you, if you can find a way to bring your stress down or to let the stress go, absolutely do so. Okay. Yeah, I'd rather that you were a happy Joe than a sloppy Joe. Although sloppy Joes are actually really tasty. At least when I was growing up, they were. What you're using there, Carl, the 1 to 9 numerology, that is Pythagorean numerology. Okay. I use the numbers 1 to 12 as single digit. Okay. Which has a couple of strengths to it that are missing in standard numerology. Okay. Andreas. Number one, the difference between a spirit guide. Okay, first of all, spirit guides are the easy part. Okay, you won't be able to necessarily pin them down. Spirit guides and off-worlders can be a little bit difficult, but the key factor is this: anything that is telling you, anything that is telling you that you should go out and harm somebody, hurt yourself, harm yourself, waste something, or damage something, this is not a spirit guide. Guides don't work that way. Okay, they really don't. Christy, glad to see you could join us. Now, whether you want to call it a spirit guide, part of it is an issue of names. Okay, now what'll happen if you get used to them is you'll be able to identify, you'll be able to recognize them by their voice or by their feel as to whether or not they are an individual or whether they're a spirit because of the way they communicate. The biggest factor where it comes to spirit guides themselves is their dominant speech pattern will be in terms of the feeling of something. If you're dealing with an off-worlder, most of their references are going to be in a physical sense. There's going to be a quantifiable way for them to relate to it. And as for the creator, that's the easy part. Never, ever, ever have I heard the creator look at somebody and go, I'm not going to accept you, or you must go to church. The creator did not invent the church. He did not create it. Okay. As a matter of fact, he said quite the opposite. Yeshua himself said, wherefore two or more are gathered in my name, there am I. Okay. But the creator will always, always, always guide you in a path or suggest you look at your decision before making it. Okay. Make certain that is the path you desire to be on. Yeah, to be honest with you, Carl, again, I have no functional knowledge of Chinese astrology. Okay. Because like I said, I'm a lousy researcher. I know what I come up with. I know the information I come up with and how. I wake up knowing what it is. But one thing very necessary to keep in mind there, Androseus, is you have to realize that the creator will never talk in terms of destroying any part. In other words, material, individual, animal, doesn't matter. He will not, or she will not talk in terms of hurting any of it. Okay. And that's the funny thing. When you look at that, 13 viewers, 1 plus 3 is 4. But in the universal numerology, 13 is actually 2 because it's one complete cycle of 12 and a spare, making 2, which is the number of choice. Okay. There is only one in universal numerology. There is only one letter that vibrates at the number 1, and only one number that vibrates at the number 1. There are no master numbers at all. Okay. So, when you take a look at that, and all of this information can be tied together. But the trick is to know what makes you feel more comfortable. If you're not comfortable with a certain pattern, don't work with it. Okay. Now that applies to when we're talking about life patterns, not driving patterns. If you're not comfortable driving on the right-hand side of the road in the Western world, don't drive. Okay. Because driving on the left-hand side of the road in the Western world is a good way to get yourself killed. And several other people. You absolutely can there, Carl. And something I was going to show you that before. Because I did find them. This isn't the oldest deck I use. But this is the deck that I work with mostly at this point. The oldest deck I got way back in 1976. Just looking for one in particular. Well, one of several. Oh. That's not the other deck. This is a smaller version of the deck I use, which I'm pretty certain you guys recognize, because that's the Rider Waite. I still find it the easiest to read. Hey Matt Geek, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And I missed you coming in there, Timmy. Yeah, absolutely, guys. That would be really appreciated. I love the way you guys keep popping up with that periodically. Okay, if you haven't hit the like button on the video, on this stream, please do. It does help with the algorithm. And like I said, my goal at this point is very much to break the 1,000 this year. I'm quite happy with them because at that point, this channel becomes a moneymaker. Okay. But it's got nothing to do with you guys spending money. It's got to do with apparently with YouTube paying. Which I'm not going to complain about. If they want to give me money, I've never turned down money from anybody. That's just the way I am. Don't get me wrong. I've never based my world on money. Absolutely there, Carl. If you find something that works for you, this is absolutely the sort of thing to share. This is why I say the tools I personally work with are the ones I'm sharing. Okay. And this is why, if I look at these two books, this one here, there we go. That one is the way that I turned around and changed the direction my life was going on. But this is the backbone to how I'm building the empire at this point. Yeah, I honestly don't know who Logan is, but then let's face it, I don't know many of the people on the internet. Because what ends up happening is I get done with my channel, and then I'll go back to writing, or I'll drop into one of the channels I do know while I'm writing, which can get really interesting. Matter of fact, tonight is Wednesday. I may be on another channel tonight. I just don't know offhand. The one thing I did find, and this applies directly to this issue of Logan telling you to decode your own reality. I'm a much more firm believer in co-create your reality. Take a look at what you desire to have, and then find the people around you that can help you make that happen by picking up the loose ends. You know, where you're having a problem with something, with accomplishing something, talk to the people that you know. Talk to your social circle. Talk to acquaintances that you've got that have done what you're trying to do already. They've done it successfully. And this is why I say, if you desire to be a millionaire, I'm not the one to tell you how from a practical standpoint. I can tell you how to do it, but I have not done it as yet myself. Okay. I mean, I'm amazed at the way things are going on occasion. Uh-oh. We got a new email that came in. This is why I call it open. Oh, okay. Just stuff that the phone carrier was working on. Do I have anything I have to seriously consider as a viable? Oh, look at that. All sorts of neat little things. I'll have to go through that afterwards. But no, take a look at where your life is sitting and decide whether you're content with that process, with the outcome of that. Absolutely there, Carl. You know, one of the things, and I've always held this, or at least for as long as I can recall, is that the two most wasted commodities in any society is the wisdom of the seniors and the enthusiasm of the youngsters. Okay, for me, it's kind of odd in a sense because I see even people than me, and I always have seen people that are older than me chronologically, still as children. But then you got to remember that is literally a very possible reaction. Well, thank you so much there, Joe. Joe's just saying, I can't believe I'm saying this on here, but I love chat anarchy, but adult sites are a no-no. I won't even let adult sites come in. Like, if I spot them coming in, I will block them out as being right off the bat because I've got nothing against adult sites. Okay. I've got nothing against them at all. But do I need them in here? No. Yo, are they a necessary commodity? Well, they found out about 30 years ago in Sweden that yes, adult entertainment, as it were, okay, or what they've got in Sweden being a red light district, is a necessity in today's world. Okay, because about 30 years ago, before the red light districts were started, in Sweden, the government came out and said, okay, clear the streets of the night trade. Take them off the street, all of them. Well, the police across the country started clearing the streets. They arrested the people working them. They arrested the people utilizing the services. At the end of 1 month, they across the country went into the courtrooms and went, okay, you can do what you will. You can leave that on the books. But we are not going to enforce it, period. Because what they found happened when you take that industry out of the equation, the violent crime rate skyrocketed 700% in 1 month. Okay. Now, I've got nothing against the industry. I've got nothing against the people working in it. Okay. I do have a problem with it being advertised in my chat room. Somebody else's chat room, that's their call. But in my chat room, if I see it come in, I'll just pull the plug on it. Because it's just one of those things I don't require, that I do not agree with. That's sort of what I stumbled across there, Star. Is we used to have one come in here, okay, and it took me a few weeks to figure it out. Of course, at the time I was only doing one stream a week. Yeah, I just have fun trying to figure out who's a bot. The term bot I understand fully, but I have a very big problem trying to spot which people are technically trolls or fall into the category of trolls. Of course, I think a lot of that problem is I'm not good with picking up on the subtleties anyway, which is weird when you think what I did for a living for the last 20 years. Nope, last 26 years. My sole income was working on a psychic line, knowing what people were coming up against. Okay. And when you think I was running at the time, I would run a good 60% of my, no, more than that. I get probably 80% of my calls were requests, meaning the person would phone in looking directly for me. The one thing I found where it comes to tarot is this, and I mentioned this the other day. A lot of readers I know only read right side up. But here's the thing. You take a card like this. The good and the best books I've seen have 20 to 25 definitions. The reality is that this one card has approximately 8 billion definitions. When you flip it over, it's got another 8 billion. Okay. And if you take two of them together and they're both right side up, you're looking at 64 billion combinations. Okay. If they're both right side up. As in 8 billion times 8 billion. You can see how this becomes an interesting situation. Numerologically, I am not going to bother trying to figure it out. Okay. Especially when the layout I personally use is a 49 card layout. Now think of how big a number of permutations you can come up with there. And the funny thing there, Nikki, is that oracle cards are just another way of dealing with them. Okay, tarot I work with, cartomancy, technically I work with, but I work with cartomancy, which is your regular playing cards. Okay, but playing cards were originally derived from the tarot card in the first place. And my understanding is real simple, and this was corroborated by somebody that was trained in the Vatican, that the tarot cards were originally designed to spread Christianity. Then the gypsies got a hold of them and figured out how to make money with them. Okay. Yeah, and that's exactly the reality of it, YJ. Is the cards themselves are not, the cards are a focal point. Okay. But they do pick up on the energy to pop out what you're dealing with. Okay. And I used to work the live fairs. Am I going to be working with these and still, I did decide about a week ago here that I am going to be doing readings for people. I will continue doing that. Okay. Yeah, there's lots of channels that are live at the moment. And that's the thing. Not a problem there at all, Carl. I'm really glad that you did manage to join us. And I am hoping that your health is taking a turn for the better. Yeah, quite honestly, well, that would be a little rough. See, the Vatican didn't actually operate before the Anunnaki left. They got a lot of theory there, but I didn't actually take the time. At the time, I wasn't looking into it, and the guy I knew that was raised in the Vatican wasn't exactly forthcoming about a lot of the extra secrets. But I can tell you that the Anunnaki they are a real race. We do have skeletons of them on Earth. The giants that you see that you run into periodically, as far as the bones of them, okay, that's your Anunnaki. You know, but there is so much that the Vatican is not telling you, or is telling you is evil, that they utilize themselves because they've got this brilliant idea that they are the ones that are supposed to be able to do it. And I'm telling you, it works really backwards. What we've got to do is realize that many of the spiritual guidelines that people are operating under are being taught, they are being reinforced as a fear-based setup. And we've got to work together to take this fear and turn it around the other direction. Okay, we've got to start pointing out to people that I saw a card in here the other day. See, this is one of those, this one here is one of those cards that it doesn't matter which way it lands, whether it's right side up or upside down. Okay, it still boils down to harmony. This is one of those cards that just works out really nicely for people. Okay, but will I be working with that? Yes. But I will tell you, for those of you that are actually interested, to start with, I started working with tarot professionally when I was 23. Okay, as in generating an income. Now, from 95, which would put me 1393 would have been 20. So yeah, so from 23 years old until 59, so 36 years. Okay, I spent just working with tarot, which is why I charge for it. I was asked one day, "Hey Raven, how you doing? Glad you could join us." You know, the reason I charge for it is this: if I don't charge for it, if I don't continue making a living that way, then I will have to go and find a mundane job. And I gotta tell you, at 59 years old with a bad leg, not going to be a fun task pulling it together. Okay, but am I going to work on that side and the writing as well? The answer is absolutely yes. Oh, that's cute. Yeah, I don't, to be clear, we're talking sports in the chat room, and the reality is I got nothing, I've got no problem with that. Am I going to be able to follow much of it? Not a snowball's prayer. I was pulled out. Oh, Raven, tonight I decided, because of last night, I was having a lot of trouble after last night. I decided to just go with open topic and see where it went. Well, thus far we have gone from, at one point we're back talking about gaming, about the metaphysical world and this sort of thing. So it really is a question of whatever topic comes up. Okay. I'm guessing you hit the enter button a little quick. Because, in all fairness, Raven, I wonder if an awful lot of times, I wake up in the morning and going, I'm awake. Well, I do apologize for the disturbance. My night went reasonably well. This morning, I was dealing with flashbacks, because the reality of it is, much of what I was talking about, especially when it came into the torture equipment, if you will, Okay, most of that I didn't recall until last night. And before anybody jumps on that, that's the way memory works. The trick there, Joe, I don't know which card, like I don't have a Loca deck. Okay, but I will tell you this. With the deck, I'm presuming it came with some guidelines of interpretation, some basic guidelines. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Joe. Raven, do not regret, and this goes out to all of you. Do your best, regardless of the topic. Do your best not to regret asking about it. Yes, I've got my hiccups. Okay, but the only way you learn to move forward with them is by sorting through them. And the reality is, I got questions by some people that had mentioned that it was off kilter from what they had been used to, from what they had read. The reality is, if it helps one person and doesn't cause me a heart attack, we're good. If it causes me a heart attack, we might have a problem. I might be dead again. I will tell you, a fatal heart attack is a major disturbance when it comes to getting your attitude moving forward with your life. Okay, just reading here, Carl. Carl's just asked, I see one star at night through my window and planes with trails during the day. Well, number one, the one star, depending on, in all fairness, Carl, I don't even know where you are on the planet. And yeah, I know you've told me before, but it won't help much because I'm not there. But the one star may simply be because it's in the right location for you. The planes that you see with the trails behind them, okay, if you're talking about pattern trails as in a kind of a lattice work across the sky, those are chemtrails, and you'll see them running one direction. What you're not necessarily aware of is that the chemtrails that go the other direction, that go cross angle to them, in other words, forming the lattice work, the second set of chemtrails is the new chemicals being brought in to neutralize the first set. Okay, chemtrails are real. Okay, as are the neutralizing agents. As for the star, it depends on where you are, and usually I will tell you this: if you look at a crosshair, okay, and I can't do this. Somehow I ran out of fingers. Okay, but if you've got a crosshair, and your eyes naturally they do not focus on the cross, where your eyes and where the average person's eyes actually center, is you go to that center point and go up just a fraction, probably about a fifth of the way across the view screen. Okay, going northeast. That's where the most profitable or the most observed point on a grid is, on a crosshair is. That I appreciate that, YJ. The reality of it is the company I've got, Inner Voice Enterprises, is already listed as a publishing company. Now I'm starting to push it forward. Oh, poetically, I don't think I've seen you in here before. Welcome to the club, or welcome to the chat room. I'm really happy you came. For those of you that are either listening in, if you're listening in and not active in here, absolutely. Before you start thinking otherwise, just listening is absolutely, acceptable and encouraged. Okay, but if you'd be kind enough, if you like the chat, if you like the room and the way that the topics are going, absolutely give us a thumbs up. And please remember to hit the subscribe button down in the bottom right-hand corner. And I get a kick out of that. It's actually not a bad idea. Raven's just suggesting that if you use she's not suggesting. Raven has said, I found that if you use the term geoengineering, that instead of chemtrail, people tend to be less dismissive of the topic. And that undoubtedly is probably correct. Of course, me being politically correct or striving to do things to make people more agreeable to it has never worked well for me. Uh-oh. That's one way of looking at it there, Joe. Joe just says, I'm just waiting until my iPad crashes, then my iPhone crashes. Problem solved. End of anxiety. So I'm like, from that, and that's the one I keep forgetting about. I'm in the process of writing up just a quick little blurb about my YouTube channel to start spreading it out to different places as well and see what happens. But I'm only going to be doing it at 5 to a topic, 5 sites a day sort of thing, or 5 sites every 2 days. I don't know what the schedule is going to be. It's going to depend on what I'm up to. Yeah, that's why I picked an open topic, is it goes this way. It usually does anyway. But at least if I go open topic, people know that we're not likely to stay focused on one spot. And I will tell you, after yesterday, rough run. In some cases, I do feel for those that ended up triggered. That can be a real challenge for people to deal with at the best of times. I have done that before, YJ. I used to actually put out a magazine called Positive Perspectives. Okay. But because of the amount of time because of the work that I was doing on the other venues, not the least of which was my work itself, it became a bit of a challenge. Okay. But I may just decide to start doing that. Okay. The thing is, where it comes to that, I think what I would do there is not do it just online, but we'll see how that works. That's one of those things I'll have to take a look at. Well, thank you very much for the suggestion there, Star. I'm learning about, and this is one of the things that's holding up, pushing the issue of the publishing company going full cycle, is I'm just learning about how to market. Terry, how you doing? Glad you could join us. This is going to be a year of real learning, of a real learning curve. And depending on what this new credit card company comes up with, I may have bought myself a little bit of extra room. Bear in mind, when I'm looking at finances, something you have to realize. I talked to a very, very successful businessman one day, and he goes, look, he says, here's the way that credit works. He says, never mind what the companies tell you. This is the way it works in reality from what he was seeing. And when I say very, very, very successful, the man was pulling in 2 to 3 million a month. Okay. So I'm thinking he figured something out about working with credit cards. And what he said was, if you've got one credit card with $5,000 limit on it, this is great. But he says your credit rating will be better if you've got 5 credit cards, each with only $1,000 limit on them. Because instead of it meaning one person trusts you this much, it means you've got 5 people that are trusting you for the same amount. Much better. Ultimately there, Carl, the real objective from everything I've seen is they are using it for modification purposes. Okay, kind of in tandem with the harp technology. Okay. Um, well, yeah, because you got to remember, YJ, what they're dumping is chemicals for regarding, and I know I get arguments for this. Part of that is for bioengineering. Okay, but there is a counter set of chemtrails that are going off that actually shut down the first set, which means you're not actually in as much danger as you may be thinking. Okay. Well, Mr. L, I appreciate that. Is my heart condition fine? Well, let's see. I'm not, my blood pressure is down to normal. I'm not having a heart attack right now. Fine is a little bit of a loose term. Okay. But I'm not in pain. I'm not worried about it at this point. But I definitely appreciate the concern. I actually, and it surprised me, I had a few people actually contact me via email to find out how things were going because it was a rough night. You know, well, yeah, but you got to remember the people that are actually working the chemicals. You know, Nikki's just saying here that no, sorry, YJ's saying the poison doesn't make sense because they breathe the air too. That's why I didn't say poison. I said bioengineering. If you can dampen the intellect of people, they're easier to control. If you don't dampen it so far that they become, if you will, uncivilized again, okay, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. Well, I appreciate that little update there, Raven. That's actually a good word for it there, and angels, is that people become, if you temper their brain chemistry correctly, they become more pliable. And myself, I didn't go down that road very well. My boss found that out when I told him what he could do with it. When I told him, I knew what his rules were, and I just was going to ignore them. Okay, but no, when you take a look at things, okay, we have to. It is absolutely imperative in today's world that we really look at starting to point people back to the direction of doing exactly what's happening in this room. Okay, what's happening in this chat room is incredible. Okay, and that is that we are talking, everybody in here, you come from a wide array of people. Okay, but you're all working together. You're all interacting in a polite fashion. Okay, with new ideas. And I tell you, some of the topics that come up in here just tell me that the people in this room, contrary to what their friends may say, what your friends may be telling you, yeah, many of you are a little off kilter from the norm. But the reality is you guys have a wide array of intellect with a lot of new insights. Okay. Oh, Andreas is just asking. I've heard you say on SOR several times that the off-worlders will not come down until we have a peaceful civilization. Does this mean everyone or the majority? Well, the reality of it is we're talking about the majority. There will almost invariably be somebody that's not happy. So this does not have to be 100%. What it has to be is that the majority of them, the majority of humans realize that whether you're an Eskimo or an Aboriginal, okay, in other words, from up in the Arctic Circle all the way down into the outback of Australia, you're equal, or all the way from Russia to North America. When people come to realize, more to the point, all the way from China to North America, coming across Russia, when people start behaving and start treating each other as equal value, this does not mean you all have to worship the same person. It does not mean you have to follow one leader. Okay, it means that you've got to be willing, that the majority of people have to be willing to acknowledge that everybody has an equal value. Okay, we've got to start looking at the similarities. And this is what people are overlooking, if you will. I'm just looking at this. Mr. L has written, I've always wondered how the pilots are able to handle exact same thought. They just must have blocked it out to keep on flying and trying to put their families out of their mind while their pockets grow. In all fairness, that's the only way I can see it. But then some people are motivated by money. I will tell you, from my standpoint, money has never been a driving factor. I should have paid more attention to it. Okay, I really should have. Most pilots, and this is nothing against them, most pilots do not realize it's like, here, you're going out to spray this. They may be told one thing and not told anything else. But then, if we look at the educational system, you're told, the teachers teach what they're told to teach, not necessarily what they believe. Okay. And what I'm working towards doing at this point, and I never intended on doing it, but it's the way things have gone. Hey, Timming, how you doing? Glad you could. Oh, I'm presuming this means you're taking off. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I do look forward to seeing you again. We have to realize that regardless of what you're doing for your spiritual guidelines, for your support group, okay, you got to realize that everybody goes through similar things. Okay, now granted, I suffer from PTSD, for a couple of things. Some of you people are going through the same sorts of issues. They don't have to be the same ones. Okay, the reality of it, the reality of it is that we're taught to fear everything. Okay. That was just a terrible movie. I mean, talk about a B-class movie. At least in my opinion. Carl's just going, snakes on a plane. Very, very B-class movie. Personally, the one I got a real kick out of that style of movie was The Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Very bad movie. I have the other one that I've watched, which again, really bad movie, was the Sharknado series. I think I've seen 5 out of 7. And they're all pretty much the same line. Well, that's the whole thing. Carl's just saying you got to work to make a mint. I've designed something, and this actually applies directly to you, Tara. Tara, you still in the room? I don't think so. But Tara just recently bought a book. Okay. And I figured out a way of actually tracking word of mouth advertising. Okay. It is part of my game plan to make things grow. Tara, I'm not going to, I will tell you this. Because you bought a book, what I've done, and this applies directly to you, what I've done is I've actually got a method of if you refer somebody and they buy a book, whether it's the same one or not, doesn't matter. But I figured out a way to pay for word of mouth advertising. Okay, it's a system that I'm not about to try and sell to anybody because talk about a complicated algorithm, and yet it works. So it's just one of those things I'm putting to use because, the reality is we have to pay advertising. Every company has to advertise. And if you're paying for advertising, that's fine. Nobody complains. The thing I look at is twofold. One is you turn around and you pay for advertising, but the number one method of advertising on the planet today is word of mouth. Let's just solve that problem. Where is it? Right there. Just going to re-enter it. It's actually at the top of the chat room, but this is this is literally the website that's got all of my books on it, complete with 3 of them, with Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams, Believe in Your Business and Follow Your Dreams, and Mr. Dreamcatcher. There's a direct link, but if you go there, it'll tell you what the price is. Okay, if they aren't available through a hot link, okay, they are all available. The price is listed right there. They can be ordered directly through PayPal. My email address for PayPal is innervoiceenterprises@yahoo.ca. Okay. I've actually got 7 in the middle, 7 on the go. Yeah, that's the thing, Raven. So many people, we are taught fear everything, and they were worried for the longest time about being chipped. Okay, there's your chip. Virtually everybody carries one with them. Virtually every cell phone you get actually has a camera in it. So a camera and GPS, the whole 9 yards. So are you already chipped? You bet your bottom dollar. Okay. It's a combination of things there, Mr. L. The spraying isn't doing as much damage to the depression or as much accentuation to it, in my experience, as what the so-called spiritual guides that stand there and go, fear everything around you. Everybody's out to get you and the world's going to end. And there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, you gotta wait for somebody else to clean up your mess. That's what's causing a lot of the depression. Okay. Raven, I am so glad you managed to join us. And thank you so much for that there, for that there, Nikki. The reality is I am building a database so that the people that are purchasing books, as I find out about them, because I should have done this several years ago when I started, but now that I'm pushing things, okay. No, in all fairness, Carl, I do not personally, attribute the operations where people are being chipped without the knowledge. Okay. Is it possible? Certainly. Am I going to worry about it? No. I won't go to the hospital to get operated on anyway, but, that's just the way my world's been going. Okay, what have I got sitting here? Oh, now here's the thing. The harp stations that you're talking about, the harp station is, literally speaking, a first-generation atmospheric generator. Now, are they using it for some pretty bizarre ideas right now? Yes. But you got to realize, if you're building an atmospheric generator, you've got to figure out the impact it has. And it's easier to trigger something negative and go, there's an instant reaction. Okay, now that we've done that, how do we put it back together? That is the way society has, that's the way every society has figured out how to do things. Yeah, Sharknado, the reality of it is, from my standpoint, no, you can't rule. I mean, you really cannot rule virtually anything yet. Okay, I rule out a few things. Okay, but the reason I rule them out is because of what I've personally seen. Like, I've talked to somebody, I had somebody the other day trying to convince me the world is flat. And I looked at them and went, no. Well, look at all the evidence. I said, I don't care about all the evidence. I've been in orbit. I've seen the world from orbit. It ain't flat. At least not from anything I've seen. I like the way that one person put it. They turned around and said, where do these people get the idea that the Earth is flat? They acknowledge every other orbital body in the solar system is round. Now, what genius was it that decided that a rectangular obelisk was the planet? Who came up with the idea that this one massive anomaly would be out of the way? Well, on behalf of whoever that's for there, Nikki, you're more than welcome. Okay. I run into a problem. I take a look at the world the way it is, and I can see massive, massive complications. And like, I see massive complications because of one little detail. People are being taught, they're being distracted and encouraged to be distracted to miss out on everything. Okay. Now, we go full circle on this one. I'm finding going back and actually teaching myself how to cook. Essentially, my mom apparently taught me. Crave Dog, I did not see you come in. Welcome aboard. Glad you could join us. Everything we talk about here, in case you hadn't noticed, is very connected. And again, I'm just going to put this out there for you. If you have a topic that you would like to look at, that you would like brought up and discussed here, absolutely. Okay, we're just about out of time here, but absolutely drop me a line. Okay, one of the first ones, I think it was YJ's request, but it may not have been. One of the first, if you will, chat room requests I got actually arrived to me in an email asking about talking about past lives was reiterated in a private email. Now again, and I know I've said this before, two major factors here. Where are we? Go back up here. Okay, first and foremost, I know Nathan was in the room here. Tonight, I think I saw him come through. But this is his channel, and absolutely he goes into some really neat little topics. But when we got onto that neat little gaming topic, okay, this is the one that really has some interesting work doing. This is Shadow and Sons, and Shadow and Son deal with the figures and making little models and what have you. Again, some really interesting effort. Okay, but I gotta say I am so happy with the way things are turning out. And let's see what we're at here. Just a curiosity thing. Whoops, flooded that. Well, I appreciate that there, Joe. The reality is there's a lot of things that people are looking at and we're being taught that we're supposed to fear the whole 9 yards. I just found that fear is overrated. By the way, I also feel anger is overrated, and sadly, I don't have that much control over mine. Okay, do my best, but the reality is we're hitting the 2-hour mark here. Again, if you like the video, if you like the stream, do give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe channel in the bottom of the screen there. And one last time, if you're interested in any of the books that I've written, this is the site to go and collect them at. Okay. And yes, every one of the books that you buy is signed. Okay. But thank you all so much for joining me. Well, that ruined that. Still taking way too long. So I'll just have to do it this way. Thank you so much for joining me. And absolutely, I will be back. Tomorrow's Thursday, so I won't be here tomorrow night. Okay. But on Friday, I will be. So absolutely at that point, I do look forward to seeing you there. Until then, I'll be there. I'll be here on Friday from 4:30 to 6:30 again. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.